Now, if you weren't fired up already, you will be in a matter of minutes. Happy Saturday to everybody. Your questions, your money, your business on the Fox Business Network. I'm Dagan McDowell.
And I'm Robert Gray. Hello. And in this hour, pick up the phone, call at 877-249-9626. Send an email to yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. We're talking business.
Your own. Starting it, growing it,
Running
making it a huge success,
Yeah.
and having no fear and getting this economy to recover one person at a time, one business at a time, because there is opportunity out there.
And we've got some folks who have been successful to help us through it.
Our special guest for this hour, the former president and CEO of Webster Hall Entertainment, co-owner of Disco Sushi, the company that runs some of the hottest bars and restaurants in New York City, including the new, correct, Sean, Hudson Terrace,
That is correct.
which recently opened. We welcome, don't you love this intro? Nightlife impresario, Sean McGarr. Sean, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I haven't gotten over to, well, first, you've been in the business because you got your start working for an advertising agency, but you've been involved in nightlife since the early 90s. How's it been, and why are you still doing it? Because people think about it and they say that's one tough business to manage through.
It is a tough business. Like any other business, it's about customer service. I love it because as I get older, the people seem to be getting younger. And it's a lot of fun. You're always on the cutting edge, and you have to keep sharp to be at the top. It's not easy. We're doing well in an economy that's not. But we're enjoying it. I enjoy it. Webster Hall, as you had mentioned, was the biggest
Tell them
nightclub
for people who've never been to Webster Hall.
Webster Hall is the biggest nightclub in New York City. I was a co-owner there with the Ballinger family. And it was a great run, 11 years, some of the best times of my life. But I have two small children, and I wanted to recreate my days in 6, 7 a.m. and sleeping till 2 in the afternoon. Wasn't fun for my kids anymore.
We're looking at some of the pictures of your, I think that's one of your bars. Is that the Village Poorhouse?
That is the Village Poorhouse. You are correct.
A beer.
Which is a great play on words, I might add. Poorhouse is in pouring beer, or perhaps if you're poor in this economy, you can still afford a brew there.
There you have it. Yeah, the Village Poorhouse has 100 different types of beer. One of the great things about it is, as we say poor in the play on words, is you can get a half-pound Angus burger there with a full plate of fries and a pint of Budweiser for $6.95 still. So that's our Poorhouse special, which we have lunch every day.
I want people to get on the phone and start calling into you, because so many people who call in or want to start businesses, they always think about bars and restaurants. It's just the natural inclination because it's something that people experience all the time. They think it's going to be easy, and it turns out not to be easy in many cases.
And all of us eat, and many people go to clubs or they go to see concerts. Everyone has an opinion on, well, you know, I could make this better this way or that way, but clearly you've done it well. And to stay hot that long is really tough, particularly in New York, where you've got new clubs and bars and restaurants opening all the time, and the turnover of restaurants is really quite spectacular here, and not in a good way.
Yeah. Well, you're right. The only reason someone else would buy another business that someone else owned is because they thought they could do a better job at it. They had a better concept, better spin. The Village Poorhouses are very consistent in what they do. The other type of businesses we have cater to all the different socioeconomic demographics as well. Hudson Terrace is the hottest place in New York City and goes after that type of crowd. And in a bad economy, when you'd say, geez, why are you opening such a high-end business and all these losses of jobs?
Why are you?
Well, in New York City, it's the hub of the world, and you have an extreme amount of wealth still here. And those people need a place to go. And Hudson Terrace fulfills that obligation. And with whether it's happy hour or a corporate event, it's glorious. And everyone wants to go to the best place.
What's your biggest mistake, though? Because you've had to have made some mistakes along the way operating bars and restaurants in New York City. Give me one.
Biggest mistake in any new business is going to be figuring out all the characters, getting the place to run smooth, getting it to do what you want. And in the beginning of any business, you're going to have bumps on the road. You try not to sweat the small stuff, as long as it's not impeding on the customer service, which again is going to bring your repeat customers. And we've made mistakes. Maybe the customers didn't see them. Maybe I didn't hire the right person. But you have to get on it. You have to be active in your business. And you have to live your business and put yourself in the customer's shoes.
What was the most difficult thing to get going? Was it coming up with the concept, or was it dealing with the bureaucracies to get everything, the ball rolling?
Money?
Well,
getting the money?
If you've hit a spot in bureaucracy in New York City, it's very tough to get licenses these days in New York City. It costs a lot of money. You have to persevere, because if you give up, they're going to get you. And the bureaucracy is very tough in New York City. Once you build the business and get your licensing, then you got to make it successful.
Perseverance, love that word. But right now, everybody, it is 6 minutes after the hour, and we want to welcome our radio listeners on Sirius and XM Radio. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with Robert Gray, here to answer your questions about your money and your business for the next 2 hours here on the Fox Business Network.
Yeah, that's right. And here's how you reach us: 877-249-9626. That's the telephone number, or an email, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. We're right here with nightlife impresario Sean McGarm. He's here with us, and we're joined now by our all-star panel: John Rutledge from Rutledge Capital, small business analyst Dani Babb, and venture capitalist Al Waxman from Silos Venture Group.
Al, did we say that right?
You did.
Oh,
You did.
good.
Hello.
Silent
Good morning.
P.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Good morning.
Al specializes in healthcare venture capital. We want to stick with Sean just real quick, who's, well, you're keeping people happy, maybe not healthy, running bars and nightclubs.
How's
and
business? Is
restaurants.
business better in a recession in some aspects for perhaps the poorhouse? You hear that a lot. People think about alcohol, tobacco, stocks from a stock perspective. What about the real economy?
In this economy, especially with the Village Poorhouse, we've been very consistent. Our product was ready for a bad economy, a bad economy or a good economy. We've offered a great value and a great product. So it's kind of like the good housekeeping seal of approval. We've been very consistent. People knew what we were offering. We didn't have to change our menus. We didn't have to limit what we did. We just stayed consistent. And where a lot of people were jumping around and they might have taken their eye off of the customer service, our business model has remained the same. And therefore, business has been very good, and we're very fortunate to have a lot of repeat customers.
And how much has this recession underscored the need for personal service? If people are maybe going out 1 to 2 nights a week instead of 4 to 6 nights a week or whatever, or they're only going out to eat fewer times, you have fewer experiences. How important is that to keep the repeat customer?
It's the most important thing. I said to my staff, we have over 200 employees now. I had promised their job security, and in return had just asked to step it up on customer service. Like anyone else in this business, I think if you can get through these next 12, 18 months, you're going to be fine. It can be a great business in a good economy, but you have to persevere, and customer service is the #1 attribute to a successful business. Even if you sell pickles on a roll, you got to sell it with good customer service no matter what it is.
How do you stay on top of, though, how your customers are being treated, because you can't see the face of every customer when he or she walks out of one of your establishments, and you can't talk to them? Yeah. How do you make sure that people aren't leaving maybe a little bit ticked off?
Well, there's going to be customers. You can't please everybody all the time. But what we do, and with our management, and we preach the motto of good customer service. Then we have employees that work for us, and one of their responsibilities are to make sure that the place is in great working condition, mechanically as well as cleanliness. And twice a week, they'll go to every one of our places and walk through approximately a 100-point checklist and make sure that when we do get inspections, the place is clean. If I walk into any restaurant, the bathroom is dirty, I already get a feeling that maybe the kitchen's dirty too. So cleanliness is very important in a business, and we do a very good job. My father and my partner's father work for us, and they want nothing more than their son's business to do well. And incidentally, it's my partner Michael's birthday. Happy birthday, Mike.
Dani.
How are you using the internet in a recessionary economy to help maybe leverage, bring in new customers, tell people about what you're doing?
I think 50% of my customers come through some form of internet website, be it Facebook or email or an email blast that we would send out to our regular customers. The internet has really taken the place of a lot of advertising that cost a lot of money. And if you're savvy, and I like to think we are, we use it to our best ability. You don't want to over-abuse it. You don't want to send the person the same message all the time. But to answer your question, it is an invaluable resource to the hospitality industry.
And Sean, you talk about customer service because this is the short review from New York Magazine of Hudson Terrace. And then they put the menu, it's the drink menu and the food menu on the website. And then there are comments from people, not many yet, because you opened just in May, right?
Yeah.
So not many yet, but people who've been, people who want to go, is it the right place for them to go? Their thoughts about what your drinks menu looks like, whether they will go to imbibe and have some food. So again, this is invaluable to you.
It is invaluable.
I'm not going to read them. You should, though.
I have. I've read every one of them, actually. I stay up. My partners do as well. And we read them. Some of them you have to take with a grain of salt. But for the most part, I think it's a lot of positive in there. And you want to give the people as much information as you can. Should I spend my hard-earned dollar with this place?
Right.
Not with Sean McGarr, but with Hudson Terrace or Village Poorhouse or Sidebar or Vintage Irving or any one of our many places. You want to give them as much information, and more importantly, when they get there, it better be what they saw on the website, because immediately that'll turn someone off if it's not consistent.
So you talked about Facebook, and this brings up a larger picture of how these social networking sites are going to monetize all the eyeballs. Are you advertising, or are you finding ways to get your message out for free?
We advertise as well.
How would you do that through?
It's all about repetition and consistency in advertising. We have a wonderful program for our sports bars with another network that shows the Mets baseball games. We're very aggressive with them. We have in-game spots as well as probably 300 to 400 run-of-station promos running all the time. We will occasionally buy ads in magazines to promote special events. But for the consistency of the business, it's the Facebooks and all the other.
So do you have your own page, or how do you get the message out through Facebook?
Well, we do. We have our own pages, but we're very fortunate in that we have a lot of customers who have a lot of loyalty to us, and they'll take our information, turn it into their own, and they'll start producing this very viral situation for us, and it really works out wonderful.
Retweets. That's where retweets can get you more eyeballs than anything else, and they do all the work. Sean, so many people call us, and they worry about running out of cash. And you have to fight every day when you run a business. What do you do to make sure that you don't run out of cash before you get to the other side of the hard time so you can be there to win?
The most important thing I feel that we do is we create a budget ahead of time. And in that budget has a line item for cash reserves. I don't think any business I own, when we're raising money through our partners, doesn't have a line item with a minimum of 2 months cash reserve. So that's the number one thing. Planning ahead, raising the right amount of money. Don't be afraid to tell people what it costs to be a partner with you, because they're going to be a lot more upset if they've invested their hard-earned money and it doesn't work out. So cash reserves and really planning ahead.
Love this. Incredible advice and insight from the front lines. Sean McGarr is here. Everybody stay with us. Call or email us. Answers to your questions. So much more straight ahead. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to the Fox Business Network. I'm Robert Gray along with Dagan McDowell.
We have incredible minds here to answer your questions about starting a business, running one, making it a huge success. 877-249-9626 is the phone number, and the email address, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. Jeff of Billings, I'm saying of Billings of Lost Battalion Games. Jeff Billings. I thought Billings, Montana is the way it read. Writes, I have a business that manufactures card and board games. I'd like to know at what point do I start looking for a venture capitalist, and how do I tell a good VC from a bad VC? Well, we have a VC in the house, Al Waxman. He's got a board game business. You're not in that business, but give him some insight. Give Jeff some insight into his question.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think the best way of telling someone who's you're looking for finance from is a good one to a bad one, is their willingness to work with you. I think it's very important that whoever provides you money is also a good partner and to some extent is an advisor and a mentor. I think that's the key thing to look for. There's money in lots of different places, but there's not good advice in lots of different places.
Al, this is a central question that the first part of Jeff's question is one that comes up. I think people get hung up on the term venture capital, and it really applies to certain types of businesses and certain types of investments that a VC wants to make. Can you sketch maybe somebody who wants private equity versus VC versus just borrowing money from a bank?
Well, yeah, I think there's venture capital is generally for younger companies. It's for companies who are either in the pre-revenue or the early revenue stage and really don't have profits. That's what I would say in general. So it tends to be toward younger businesses. Private equity is generally more directed toward fairly large businesses who are generally profitable. And borrowing money from a bank is not a bad idea. You usually either require assets or cash flows. So those are the ways to think about it. Very hard to borrow money from a bank unless you put assets up to start a company. That's a very hard thing to do.
I think that's one thing that I think you cleared that up really well, Al. One thing that people don't understand when they think VC is this kind of all-encompassing term. John, you want to weigh in here? Because you've been a private investor.
Sure, I've
decades.
Been on both sides of this table, unfortunately, but
fortunately
for the borrower, you want to get the money from the cheapest source you can, and from the source that won't rip your lungs out when something goes wrong, which also is true. So the bank is usually the cheapest source, other than Uncle Bob, if you can get some from him. And the types of business matter a great deal. As Al said, venture capital is really something for bugs and drugs and medicines and software.
Which Al does.
Things that you can sell a lot of, that can be really big, that are risky bets. But if you win, you make 10 or 20 or 50 times your money. Mm-hmm. Private equity is, or leveraged buyouts or growth capital is for businesses that want to raise capital that can't get it from a bank, but they have very profitable businesses they want to grow. And that money will cost you today 15, 20, 25% a year instead of 5, 10% a year. And it's very competitive today. So cheapest source you can get. How do you know the best capital source? You have to know somebody who's done business with them before. You won't hear anything from them to know that. You've got to do your diligence.
We need to take a quick break, Danny. Yep. We'll get to you, and I want to know how Sean raised his money to grow his business. Relatives, when we come back, you tell us.
I have an Uncle Bob.
All right, we'll hear about Uncle Bob when we get back. More answers to your questions ahead. Keep the calls and emails coming.
This is the Fox Business Network. We love what we're doing so much that we haul our sorry selves out of bed at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, and I am not kidding. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is the Fox Business Network. Everybody, welcome back. Here to answer your questions about your money and your business.
That's right. Call us at 877-249-9626. Email also yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. We are talking to Sean McGar. You've probably been, if you've ever been to New York City, you've probably been in one of his bars or
nightlife venues.
Or past ventures.
Yeah, former owner-operator of Webster Hall, now of Hudson Terrace, and also the Village Poorhouse. Yeah. Exactly. Sean, we're talking about raising money and funding your business. How'd you do it?
Well, you know, like I said, I did have an Uncle Bob and my father, Ron, who were together at my cousin's shower today. Sorry I missed it, guys. We've done everything, my partner Michael Sininsky and I, from taking home equity loans, second mortgages. We've really believed in what we were doing and really rolled the dice. Unlike a lot of other people who may have borrowed money, as John had said, interest rates are so high when you have to borrow money, especially when cash is king. And fortunately, we were able to borrow from our families, and then, but we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, and you know, you can only get so much from your family. So we have borrowed it from the banks based on our assets, and assets are very important these days when you need to borrow money and not really want to go on hawks, so to speak, with very high interest rates. And that's really where we got it from.
And do you own your properties, or are you leasing?
We're currently leasing all of our properties. We're in tremendously large buildings, buildings that are managed by like the folks from the Empire State Building, and some of the largest property owners. And their rent rolls are more important to them than actually the cash coming in. I don't think they know what to do with it. You know, they like that rent roll coming in. So we're currently looking at our first acquisition right next to Hudson Terrace to move our corporate offices to. And it's a small building, but it would be beginning for Michael and I to own bricks. And that's really our plan, to sell beer and buy bricks.
You're smiling, John. You're smiling.
Well, partly in this economy, there are a lot of guys who own things that wish they didn't own things. Those guys can probably be a good seller to you. Yeah. But the strategy of conserving cash by leasing, especially at discount instead of owning things in general, I think is a pretty good one. But as a business owner, you do like to have a home. You know, where you can put your stuff and pictures of Dad and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to have a place. I always try to encourage people to try and keep that small, so it doesn't impinge on the cash flow of your business, because those customers are what matter to you.
Yeah, and one thing that's important to remember is that in this market right now, rents in leased buildings are down 20% overall nationwide in suburbia and 40% in urban areas. So if you're trying to negotiate lease space, this is the time to negotiate it and lock it for as long as you can.
I can tell you that we've been very successful in just that. We've been very good tenants to the folks like the Zeckendorf building and whatnot. We've paid our rent on time. We have very long leases. We have 20-year leases. That's all we'll enter into. But we've gone back to each and every one of them. And each and every one of them, because we were the good credit guys with paying our rent, have up to 20% reduced our rent.
Wow.
And they didn't have to.
So don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Right,
Don't be afraid to ask. And
That's something every entrepreneur is never afraid. They're never afraid to like get out there.
To grovel.
Speaking of asking, we've got a question right now by email. Sally out in Hawaii writing in, I own a small business selling animal feed and pet supplies. I want to retire. Now, the business is labor intensive and a perishable commodity with a narrow profit margin. Is there a formula or some way of pricing my business for sale? John?
Well, you know, I need to know a little bit about the size of the business to really get into this, because that matters a lot on the pricing. In a good market, a business that's of medium size, where I would say cash flow that's measured with millions instead of hundreds of thousands, so a several million-dollar business, that would sell for 6 times cash flow, which means profits after what you need to put back in the business. In the market right now, because there's no loan money from banks for those kinds of transactions, those prices are more like 4.5 times, which means this is not the time you want to go out there and set a price on your business. It's the time when you want to spruce your business up to make this year and next year's cash flows look really good, so that next year you can talk with investors, and the following year you can actually do the transaction. There are investors who do those deals in Hawaii. If you send us an email, I'll give you a couple of names of them. You'll find them generally through the best of the accounting and law firms in Honolulu. Right. But you can sell that business, but you wouldn't want to price it today.
Al, you're in the healthcare venture capital field.
Right.
But do you have any general guidelines for this woman about pricing or postponing the day that she's trying to sell it?
Yeah, I think John's comment about right today, prices are clearly depressed. People have a great deal of difficulty borrowing money, so prices are down, typically below 6 times cash flow. I think the key element is to look at the growth of your business also. Most people want to buy a business that's growing, particularly people who are investors as opposed to proprietors. So probably just listening to, without knowing a great deal, it sounds like you might want to sell your business to a proprietor and find perhaps an advisor who might give you an innovative way of how to finance that transaction.
Dani?
Yeah, we've got people asking this question in the forums on my website, which is thebabbgroup.com, by the way.
And that's why we're here, is plugging everybody's business. Again, Sean's over here.
Yeah, it's a common question we get asked. And, my answer to everybody has been, if you can hold out for the next couple years, it's kind of like selling your home in today's market. You really don't want to unless you absolutely have to. This is the time to invest and make it better and make the business or the home, if that's what you're trying to sell, look better, have better curb appeal, better numbers, and then sell it when the market's better.
John?
And if I may, on the other side, and I agree with everything that Dani and John said. They're so on the money with the information they're providing for the listeners. But Michael and I, at this time, we go out and get very aggressive for the people who do have cash flow and do want to grow their business. When people are scared, it's a time to be aggressive as a businessman. And I believe there was someone, a much better businessman than me, that came up with that quote. But it's a very good time to buy businesses. And if you do have cash, cash is king. And those deals are out there. And right now, I won't even, if I'm looking at a business, I won't even be interested in it unless the infrastructure's there. The kitchen that could cost you $400,000 or $500,000 in a restaurant sometimes are left there. And the HVAC and everything else you need that would cost you at least $1 million are usually left behind in these deals where you can get in with no fixture fees and whatnot.
Exactly. This is the time when you want to be a buyer of assets, not a seller of assets. And the way that transaction would work from the other side, Sally, is someone who wanted to buy your business would get as much cheap money as they could that cost less than 10%, and they'd put a little bit of their expensive money, 30% money in it, blend it together, and that cost them maybe 15%. Problem is today the cheap money is not available, so you use all expensive money, and your business has to generate maybe a 30% return for that guy, and that means he's not going to pay you so much.
We got to take a quick break.
Yep. More answers to your questions, though, straight ahead. Call us, email us, 877-249-9626, or yourmoney@foxbusiness.com.
And up next, 2 entrepreneurs taking their idea for a business to our venture capitalist, Al Waxman. It's a big-time pitch. You do not want to miss it. And it's next here on the Fox Business Network. Time for the pitch. I'm Dagan McDowell along with Robert Gray here on Your Questions, Your Money. It's my favorite segment. An entrepreneurs get to pitch his or her their business idea to a venture capitalist. Today's lucky entrepreneurs are Sherry and Jordy Soborn. Did I say it right, guys?
Yes, you did.
Okay, great. They're joining us here in the studio. And in Santa Fe, New Mexico, we welcome venture capitalist Al Waxman, Senior Managing Member and CEO of Silos Group. Now, Al, this is not your bailiwick. This is not your area of focus, but I know you have big picture ideas and guidance to give both Sherry and Jordy. So they're going to pitch, and then you just jump in and start asking questions whenever you need to. So, guys.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Okay, pitch away, guys, because you got this. Jordy has a T-shirt on to tell you.
Bail Out the Game is a board game. It's made in America. It's for 2 to 6 players. It's a strategic, interactive game that encompasses the goings-on of the governmental bailout. We expect sales to soar in the gaming industry. Even though toy sales are down, we've seen that game board sales have increased. That being said, we expect the market to do really well in that industry. As far as revenues are concerned, We expect our internet sales to go very well. There's more profitability, though, in retail sales, and that's really what we're geared for is the retail sales. We'll have a greater overall profit margin where that is concerned. And so, Jordy, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, tell us about the game a little bit, too.
The game is, the object of the game, Bailout, is kind of like satire humor, taking banks that you start off as a solvent bank, and the idea is that as you go around the board, you're losing money the whole way, and whoever has the least amount of money at the end, they win.
So it's the opposite of the game of life.
The opposite
of the game of life. So.
We feel our timing couldn't be better because Americans are just looking for affordable ways to do things at home, and Bail at the Game costs less than taking your kids to the movies. It's fun, it's educational, it's unique. You'll definitely want to play it again and again. Our kids have played it over and over. We feel it's relevant because the bailout is part of the current events that are going on, and bailout, like Monopoly, is a word that's not going to get lost throughout history.
How much money do you need?
How much money do we need?
We figured that we were going to need about $120,000 to really get this thing moving. And we broke it up into a series of different ideas. One, we have an internet presence, but as an architect and of my own company and having that design capabilities, I did pretty much everything ourselves. And our startup costs have been done by ourselves. So we need to get a professional internet presence. As well as getting some advertising geared specifically for our audience, political in nature, and games. And then going beyond that, we want to get to some conventions. So we're going to need advertising material for that, being poster boards and handouts and things of that nature. And actually going to the conventions. These booths don't cost anything. They cost some money. So we have there's a big toy convention in Chicago that we plan on going to, and being that I'm an architect, my wife is a homeschool mom, we see an audience in the homeschool area as well, because it is educational in some respects.
And we should point out that's that's Brianna and Lauren, your two daughters who you designed, who are playing the game over there. But let Al, get in here. You can ask him anything, but just go right ahead.
Absolutely will. First of all, I think the qualification to be a venture capitalist is to be a deal junkie, so I love the idea. It sounds very, very interesting. I guess my question, is this a business that the two of you plan to run? Is this what you're going to be doing? I guess that's the first question we'd want to ask, because after we're convinced it's a good idea, we'd like to make sure that there's someone to run it. So I guess that would be my first question.
Well, we're small business owners now. My husband has owned RJS Architects for, 5 years? 5 years. Incorporated. And it's just us, and we do a great job. And obviously, this game came out of that, a family game night in our house. And yes, we want to run it. We're very excited about it. The kids have helped with our focus groups, and every part of us is in it, and we're excited about it and ready to go forward and make this game a hit to all of the American people.
Okay, so the kind of money that you're looking for, $120,000, $125,000, is generally small for most venture capitalists. There are some people who invest in board games like Rustic Canyon or Mopius or Trinity, so in the venture capital world. So they might have some interest in this thing. I guess a second question, do you actually have a detailed business plan that shows how this cash would last? Because if you listen to Sean, and I think he's absolutely right, nothing quite ever goes the way you plan it to go, so you need some cash reserves to make sure that you can handle it not going quite as fast as you think it's going to go. So that would be my next question.
Yeah, that was in part of the planning. We had to make sure that, because when we ordered the games from the manufacturer, which is American-made, we ordered from a company named Delano Service in Battle Creek, Michigan, and that was one of the things we talked to them about, because we did have to pay for the games up front when we ordered them. So before we did so, we sat down, we figured out, okay, all of the major retail stores, they like 30, 60, 90 days out. So we set forth, okay, if this is how many games they're going to want, we needed to make sure that we had the right amount of money in order to be able to to sustain at least, at minimum, a 90-day period. So we are aware the money that we're asking doesn't have anything to do with the money that we have in reserves to make sure that we can cover the cash flow aspect of the games.
How many employees will there be, just the two of you? Besides, it sounds like you're outsourcing a lot of things.
Yes.
We are outsourcing a lot of things, but we are firm believers in helping other small businesses. And we have family game night planned before Fox contacted us, a local business owner where we frequent, Wings Plus. He's been very supportive. We have another local business owner, Romano's Pharmacy. They're letting us display the games in their store. And they've been really, really supportive in doing this. So we're kind of at a grassroots level right now, and we're trying to take the next step to get onto the bigger, broader spectrum. So right now, it's just the two of us. We have a lot of family, a lot of friend support, and every small business starts out small, and we're
right. Hey, Al, give them a verdict. Give them a verdict.
No, I think it's a great idea. Are there any board pieces named Geithner or anything of that in this game?
No, I guess my favorite.
I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a great idea. What state are you in? I'm sorry, I did not hear that.
Well, the games are manufactured, and we're on the internet. We've been online now for 19 days. You guys, the producers of Fox News, found us on Twitter, so social networking has been tremendous for us. We're very happy with that. My brother helped us. I had no idea what social networking was before that, so thank you, Michael.
In most states, there exists something called angel venture capitalists, and they generally have an association. And they are typically successful entrepreneurs from the past. I think they're going to find this game. This is obviously a very now kind of subject. I think you might look that up and see where the Angel Venture Capital Association is in your state, and maybe go talk to some of those people. I think it's a terrific idea. I really do. I like the idea, and there's nothing like laughing right now, considering you might cry about some of these thoughts. So.
I know. I've been sitting here chuckling. Guys, do you want to jump in here? Because we sitting here listening to it, you definitely know what you're doing. You have your mind focused. You've planned it. You've thought it out. It's out there. People are already finding it. Right, John?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You guys are, first of all, minding your local market. I mean, we tell people to do this every week. You have to find a way to get the local drugstore to show it for you, the local Boy Scouts to use it. Use the resources you've got at home. They're free, but you have to attack. The second is you're starting with the internet. I think you should hire your two daughters, because to do social networking, you need the mindset for social networking, and it is not mine. And so you need somebody who's really into that, and they'll make you a lot of money. As our friend says, you either are going to do better than you think, in which case you're going to need more money, or you're going to do worse than you think, in which case you're going to need more money. And so you're planning for the way you want it to be. And so if you think you need 120, you probably need 250. That's still in the range we were talking about. That's angel money. The fact that there's Michigan involved, Michigan right now is a place that Washington is working very hard to keep afloat. So you're going to find government dollars flowing into Michigan through mayor's offices and through the state government. That'll happen through the State Economic Development Agency. They might well front this whole thing for you and use it as a project to get some visibility behind the thing. But all these things, I think, are great ideas. And the only difference I would have from what Al said is the Geithner Square, I would name it Doogie, because I think you need to make as much fun of this stuff as you possibly can.
You have to be careful, though, about naming pieces or naming squares, because, again, this could be going on for years and years, and if you don't want to have to constantly change the game, then you have to be careful, right?
Yeah, that was one of my first.
I just wanted to come back. I want to come back about Michigan for a second, because I think that's right. I think Michigan actually has a venture capital program that's intended to stimulate local businesses. So I think that would be a great place to go look and talk to the person who has that responsibility.
You can find that on ventureblog.com to find the one for Michigan. I think the idea is fantastic. It's exceedingly timely. What I would do is make sure that you have a plan after the bailout is not in the news and in a headline every day, so that you know maybe even what the next game is. This may be a series of things making fun of the government. Excellent. That's very good to know. John had written a note here about having an online version of the game. I think that's something to look at, which obviously you need capital for. To me, it sounds like a huge number, and I know that it is, but I would look to see, one, if you, I'm sure you have looked at this already, but home equity lines, credit cards, other assets, because if you feel like it's really going to excel, you may not want to wait for VCs. VCs fund, in general, about 1% of the businesses in the nation. So they're generally not the source of money for things, particularly small amounts of money.
But angel investors, which Al pointed out, which are just basically can be rich folks in your area.
Yeah,
and if you get one that knows something about how to make your business grow, because you need an advisor too.
Exactly, but they also tend to cost more. And we do know that there are companies, like I'll give you an example, Mercantile in Altamonte Springs, Florida. They are a small company that's now, they're not a bank, they're actually a company that for 7% interest is giving between $50,000 and $7 million for startups like this. There are these little companies popping up that where 7% is looking really good to them. They've basically pooled money together, and they're not overcharging people, and they're doing this because they want to help small businesses, believing that's the way the economy is going to rebound, which we also believe.
Guys, we got to take a break, but it's great of you to be here. Sherry and Jordy Soporn, said it right, I hope. Bail out the game. They can find you online. I hope that was helpful.
www.bailoutthegame.com.
And Al, thank you. Mr. VC, Al Waxman. You're not going anywhere, though. Thank you for that.
Thank you guys for joining us. Best of luck to you.
Yay. Can we just give a round of applause? Come on, man. Yay. We love the game. Thanks for being here. We're so glad you came in today. But all right, coming up, we're going to do a lightning round of questions because we want people to get on the horn, call us. We can answer anything about, and Sean's sitting over here shaking his head. He's got insight. You want to start a restaurant? You ask this man, Sean McGar. Stay with us, everybody. 877-249-9626. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're trying to get to a lightning round here where we can answer your questions about your business. I'm Dagan McDowell along with Robert Gray. You want to give them the phone number?
Sure, let's do it. Taking questions, your money, so call 877-249-9626. You can always email us, too. Your questions at foxbusiness.com.
You got it. Larry's on the phone from Texas. Right. Larry, can you hear us? Go ahead, ask your question.
With the proposed changes in health care plans, what should I do as with a small business owner looking at our own plan versus where the government's going?
Larry, that's a big question, guys. Well, let's take it to John or Danny first. You got any ideas? Do you provide health care to your employees, Danny?
I have mostly contractors, and you don't have to do that in California when you have a certain number. I would go to a broker and I would beat them up over price. We have a lot of people that are losing small business owners right now in terms of the volume of activity that they have going. I would try to get the cost down as low as you can and find some way to share the revenue with the employees. It's not a wonderful answer, but right now, unfortunately, there's not a really great one.
John, how are you dealing with it?
Well, yeah, I think what Danny said is exactly right. As an employee of a business, I would love if my employer said, hey, I'll share it with you. At least it's given me an opportunity to get something that's very unaffordable. And we deal with it all the time. And we would love to provide it to everybody and pick it up, but we do what we can. And it's the deals that we make with these people when they come on board. And the management has to have health insurance, and you want your employees healthy.
Right. Al, you are in the business of funding these healthcare companies. You maybe can't answer this directly, but what do you see in what the government is doing and will do with healthcare?
Well, I think the government, first of all, I'd ask the person with the question, how many employees do you have? And then I'll answer your question. Or can he not hear us?
We have 615 employees. That includes part-time and full-time.
Okay. Well, I would think at 615 employees, you could buy some reasonable insurance. There are a lot of interesting ideas out there right now in terms of new kinds of health plans, ones that actually reward you for being compliant or for improving your health. So I would look around. I agree the idea of talking to a broker, looking for innovative ideas for health insurance. Now, I think the government's attempt at what it calls healthcare reform, which I think is well directed, is really to make sure that everybody is insured in one form or another, that we have universal insurance. And I think that's likely to happen over the next couple of years. And how that is actually paid for and how that's purchased is going to be interesting. But I think employers will play a big role in that. And I think it's going to be a lot of focus on wellness and on health maintenance and on health compliance. And I would look for programs like that people are offering in your state, in the state of Texas.
Al, got to take a quick break, but thanks for calling in. Keep those calls coming. Yep. We will be right back, everybody.
And welcome back to Your Questions, Your Money. I'm Robert Gray on the Fox Business Network with Dagan McDowell.
We're so happy to be here. And let's get to a question. For Sean McGarr, who is our featured guest this hour, from Mike in Weymouth, Massachusetts. With teamwork being so important, what specific personnel and professionals are important to both develop and maintain in your business? Sean?
Well, management. Management is so important. But it always comes from the top. And I say to all of my managers all the time, it wasn't your fault, it was my fault. Because if you made a mistake or you didn't do something right, it's my job to manage those people and then therefore then manage all of our employees. So developing a good management team who activates promotion, cares for customer service and cleanliness, any business customer service, your management and keeping them strong and happy is really, really important. It really sets the tone for the rest of the business.
What do you do to teach them to go up to the next level?
Well, there's a couple. When we talk about the next level, there's a couple of things. One, we have a lot of meetings between the general management and the management so that they can jump in when needed, almost like the secondary person in a play if the lead is sick. But we also, to jump to the next level, one of the things that we do as a company, and we're featured as one of the best companies to work for in New York City. Actually, we took #2, Village Poorhouse, is we offer opportunities to our management to be our partners at the same rate in investment that Michael and I, my main partner, invest at. So we really build a loyalty to the company. And there's not a lot of companies these days that offer those opportunities to grow with the company. And our company, where we are growing, and there's a lot of investment opportunity from outside that people want to offer us, it's key.
We also have to remember that the people working with the customers create the first impression, and they also leave the last impression. So for me, I put most of my emphasis on the people that actually have contact with the people that pay my bills.
If I have a bad experience, I tell the manager. And I'm like, I'm not doing it to complain. I just want you to fix it for the next customer and for your business.
And you're always going to talk about the bad experiences more than the good ones, which is unfortunate.
So I don't complain.
Sean's a man I think people would like to work for. I think there's a talent to that.
Okay, we've got Frank from Tennessee now joining us on the phone. Frank, good afternoon. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing? I'm from Southern California. I'm a trucker. I'm just driving through Tennessee right now.
All right.
Listen, I got a piece of property in California by Palm Springs. Nice big piece of property. We just got a remodification on it, so we got saved basically. It has an industrial building on it, a shop, which I'd like to put to use and start a solar and wind power for residential businesses or residential service, sort of a business. Install it on people's houses and stuff. I want to know how to get started.
Fantastic question. Why don't we go to Al for that? Maybe.
No.
I think
go ahead, Al.
Sure. I think that's an idea that's really in vogue today. I think the general thought is that businesses that deal with clean energy, green energy are important. There's money available for that. There are venture capitalists who are making those kind of investments. So I think if you put a plan together, you got a really good idea. I think you ought to have a good opportunity there.
Dani, quickly.
Frank, kudos to you for getting the modifications. Awesome. Palm Springs down about 25%, as you know, from this time last year. I would check out this bank since you're in California. California Bank and Trust are setting records for lending for exactly the sort of thing that you're talking about. So it's California Bank and Trust, and they're doing office buildings, warehouses, and green energy and everything you can think of on residential property where there's industrial involved. It's a perfect fit.
A big shout out to Sean McGarr. If you haven't been to one of his bars, please go. Village Poorhouse,
Saturday night.
Hudson Terrace. And Al Waxman, thank you, dear sir, for being here in the last hour and being our featured VC. We have so much more coming up. And a woman who owns a chain of children's stores, you've probably been in one of them. She is next. Oh me, oh my, how time flies. We've got 1 hour left to answer your questions about your business. Being fired up, starting a business, growing it, making it a huge success. I'm Dagan McDowell along with Robert Gray, and we want to hear from you.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
The phone number, do you know it by heart yet?
I don't quite have it down by heart, but we're talking about stimulating the economy all by ourselves. Talking small businesses that become bigger businesses. So put down your coffee cup or whatever beverage you have in the afternoon here. It is the afternoon on the East Coast. Call us 877-249-9626. Email, that's yourmoney@foxbusiness.com.
And this hour, we are joined by another very special guest, Allie Wing. She is founder of children's retailer, Allie, Giggle. Her company is a one-stop resource for everything baby-related, from cribs to DVDs. Her website, giggle.com, and then 10 retail stores? 10.
11 if you count e-commerce.
11 if you count the website, but 10 bricks and mortar retail stores,
right.
The very latest that you just opened in
Yesterday.
Washington, D.C. Allie, thank you so much. You have incredible insight, but you're growing in an environment when many people would think they have to pull back. You are not. Why?
I think the challenge of this year is the opportunity. It's easier in a lot of ways to think about being able to turn some of the harder cost variables in the business for the last 3 years into opportunities that I may not even be able to seize again in 3 to 5 years. So if you're confident with your basic value proposition, and in this market we were really filling a hole where the baby industry traditionally has kind of been filled with gifts and boutiques or large players. And there hasn't been a solution for making it easy for new parents where we kind of do the homework for you. And we feel good throughout the tumultuous time with that growth and that strategy. Now is as much an opportunity as it is a challenge.
Yeah, and as a relatively new parent, I can appreciate that being laid out. The more help, the better as you're getting your feet
You wouldn't
wet, so
believe when we told people that you were coming on. I was shocked. I don't have kids myself, but everybody had been in one of your stores, certainly here and even in other parts out in California.
Yeah, and if not shopping for themselves, for others. But so you basically went into, 7 years ago you started. So did you see an opportunity then? Because now maybe the field's a little more crowded, not terribly crowded, but for these sort of unique but upscale, a little bigger than the boutiques, but not, as you said, you have the box store players in there as well. So how did you get this off the ground? Like, were you a new parent at the time and you were frustrated by the offerings? Or lack thereof?
I'm kind of unique in the market in that I'm one of the few in the new parent market that didn't actually go in the market for that reason. I'm better because I eventually became it during the process, and I think that's an important lens that I now have. But I actually was an 18-year brand marketer, and I was seeing two major trends. One was the average age of a new parent was trending much closer to 30 than 20, and good, bad, or otherwise, it's just a different consumer. And at the same time, there were a proliferation of products, services, and information we could sell parents. And any of you parents know that it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. It's amazing now. And there's not just 2 of everything, there's 25 of everything in all price ranges. So.
Right. And the industry, as it has evolved, and one of the things that we are in great contrast to is the industry has been 400 car seats with 40 different or maybe $400 different prices, and you've got to sift through it all. Or boutiques, which are mom and pops. They're gifts. But they're not a place you can go and know the thing you need, because actually parenting is hard work, will be there when you need it. And you don't really have an option when you need to move from infant car seat to second stage car seat. So what Giggle is really that edited destination to make it easier to transition from not being a parent to being a parent. And we do that with an intense sort of focus on the consumer and what they're really looking for assistance so they can make the best lifestyle choices.
Yeah, and we've talked so much about customer service over the past hour with Sean, and now with you have sort of, if anyone who's been to your website knows you have a very unique rating system where you highlight different things about the products. Talk to us a little bit about the origins of that and if that does indeed make a difference with keeping customers coming back.
It does, and boy, if I ever didn't think before, this year makes it even more true, because that is how we stay honest to our value promise of sort of best of to consumers. And what we did is, in studying the market, we figured out the 10 criteria that in some combination, and every consumer is different, they want to see a bundle of that criteria in the products that they pick, and that's how they're differentiating best. Because at the end of the day, how do you pick from 40 different car seats that all could solve an infant stage and are all safety certified? Really, you're going to look to other things like, I want multi-stage. We don't drive cars very often, so I want it as inexpensive without compromising my safety standard. We're a car family, and I need the thing that allows me to do portability across cars the most easily. Those are all criteria that we sort of boiled down to this basic philosophy and said, every product at the end of the day should try to deliver the highest combination of that bundle of goods. So when our consumer comes in, we're not I always say, if somebody in my store, if somebody comes in and says, what's the best stroller, and somebody actually answers with a stroller brand, they're in a lot of trouble. And they're in a lot of trouble because the best stroller depends on me asking you a bunch of questions about how you live. Do you live in a high-rise? Do you take a subway? Do you drive all the time? Do you have multiple children?
Do you live in a walk-up?
That is exactly the way. We have to ask those questions to get you the right stroller. And that should be the difference in a giggle environment.
You've touched on, and we're going to have to take a quick break, Allie, but you've touched on something people say repeatedly. Who is going to be your customer? Is there an untapped audience rather than I love baby stuff, I want to sell kids stuff? It is seeing a need and filling it and figuring out how to do it. But right now, it's 6 minutes after the hour. We just want to welcome our radio listeners on Sirius and XM. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dagan McDowell along with Robert Gray.
And if you've got a question.
And we're so excited. Allie
We
Wing
are
is here.
excited.
Allie Wing is here, founder of Google and Giggle.
Okay.
See, it's 3 hours in. I was bound to slip up. Dani Babb
It's a
is
good
here, and
slip
John Rutledge is here as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Come on, that was a good.
Yeah, I'll take that slip up. It's okay.
Good slip up. I'm sure you can Google Giggle, but
Yes.
Give him the phone number, though.
all right, 877-249-9626, and of course, your money at foxbusiness.com. Send in your questions for Allie and for the rest of the gang.
Giggle CEO. Allie Wing is here. Allie, how is business right now? Just bottom line.
One
or
word?
top line.
One word. I mean, I'm in consumer and I'm in retail, so there's one word, and that's volatility. Everything about this year is volatility, whether it's regardless of if overall your numbers are coming in and you're happy with them, they don't load in the same way this year. There's more top-line volatility, there's supply chain volatility, there's resources volatility, there's capital markets volatility, and those all feed each other. So when I get asked that question all the time, I say everybody thinks it's really about whether people are shopping or not, and certainly that matters a lot. But actually the complexity comes in the supply chain behind actually executing the business and the volatility going around every one of those processes right now. I'll give you a good example. We just opened a store in Washington, D.C. yesterday. And you think about that and you think, oh, wow, it's great. You got a business in this economy opening a store. Well, it's actually trying to pull that off in this market's hard. There's a developer involved, and during the process, there were several restructurings in capital for the developer, having nothing to do with our business. Fixtures that go in and actually make the store look like the store are a supply chain industry right now that is in complete turmoil, and almost no matter which part of it you touch, there is changes and unpredictability that very much impact your ability to do things like open a store. And I would suggest that the regulatory environment has changed a lot. I've never had such permit reviews, such lengthy reviews, such layers of the reviews happening in really everything we do that's expansion right now. And, the theory on that is that, there's not as much expansion, so there's more bodies looking at everything, or it's actually just shifting right now because there is this sense and this fear of what business is or will become.
And you miss taxation. That falls under, regulation and government.
Or at least we're anticipating that. But, so the complexity of the year is so much more than just the top line, and the top line's not insignificant. I'd like to think that our consumers, and we serve a more sort of an educated consumer, has always been demanding value, and therefore we've always been committed to value. And that's never easy. It's certainly not easy this year, but the complexity is actually, even the thing that is my most valued, let's say, the most popular car seat that you could get at any mass player, and of course I'll have it because it's the one everybody wants. In the history of my experience in business, I've never seen a company like that one, which is a large, well-known company called Graco, get out of stock on that bestseller. And this year it's happened 3 times. And that's a supplier issue. Like, you know, I can't solve that for the consumer. And in our environment, an entire value proposition has come in and we have the right solution for you. So missing it, we don't have 6 others that we think are also good seconds. That's a very big complexity in this year.
John, Dani, she's digging down into the issues that maybe a lot of people overlook when they're thinking about growing a business or even starting one in this environment.
Yeah, Allie's not a person who decided she wants to start a business and then learn how to do a business. She's a person who knew what she was doing ahead of time and then started a business to do something. So this is a great lesson for a lot of the viewers about the things you think about. So many people call us and they have an idea, I want to put on a play in my dad's barn and I need $2 million. They always focus on how much money they need. I always try and drive them away from that because figuring out what it is you do that has lasting value to that customer is what will carry you through times like that. The whole notion of the promise, the brand to a customer is so important, and it looks like you've got that crystal clear. When we have people calling in, I hope you can talk to them about how to sharpen their brand so it works in the same way. But these complexities you're talking about, especially supply chain issues, are really tough today, and they're not getting better.
What do you find opening a new store in D.C.? Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That you were able to negotiate in this market, given the economy, that you were not able to negotiate before, that maybe actually helped you open that store.
Well, I will tell you that in that store, that negotiation was pre this market. So I am in those negotiations, but that store isn't a good example of it. Now, even if I signed a deal that, say, pre-September, if we just pick that as the date, all of those relationships were still, I would say the developers are really excited to have a business that's doing well and are coming to the table even if it was a deal that was already signed. So when it comes to real estate, it's fundamentally changed. And I say that because think about my trajectory with Giggle. I launched it in 2002, did a concept for about 2 years before I was confident in the rollout model, went out, raised money to do that, moved the headquarters here. So really the last 3 years has been expansion. Those have been very expensive real estate years.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And certainly not the tenant with the power.
Right.
and that's a big shift right now. It's a big shift right now. And I mean, the good news I will say is the good landlords, and I often say I as an entrepreneur often am attracted to the proprietor landlords and the owner-operated ones because their financial models enable them to have a longer-term vision for what's the right player for them, what's the right mix. And a business like Giggle is great for the community of any street or center. So we can often be that long-term community pick for them. Whereas the larger guys that are owned more by the financial models that have to run it through at a much faster rate, they're not as able to actually sort of strategically plan. And
I've learned so much just in the last 12 minutes, and I've experienced that firsthand with choosing who your landlord is and how critical that is. Allie Wing is the featured guest this hour, founder of Giggle. I almost said it again. Giggle. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and be right back. Mark Suster is going to be here of GRP, the venture capital firm. He is rejoining us later in this hour. He's going to tell you how to pitch. We're not going to hear a pitch. He's going to tell you how to do it. That and so much more ahead.
All right, it's the Fox Business Network. I'm Robert Gray along with Dagan McDowell. We want to hear from you, your questions about your money.
We're talking specifically about starting your own business, growing it. The phone number, you can see it down at the bottom of your screen, 877-249-9626, or email us yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. So pitch. The pitch, we're not taking one. We're going to teach you how to toss one.
That's right.
Give a good pitch. Pitching your idea is one of the first crucial steps to really growing your business, getting money in the door. And for advice on how to perfect your pitch, Mark Suster is here, a partner at the venture capital firm GRP Partners. Mark, it's great of you to be here. I'm just so excited. So you have laid out how to perfect your pitch. So first, let's just walk through your points on the pitch. So first up, keep it short, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so what I like to say to people is it's often called an elevator pitch, but the more likely scenario is a cocktail party pitch. You've got my attention. You're probably going to be able to hold it for 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 4 or 5, but you got to be brief. So my example in being brief, state what you actually do up front. So if you have a coffee company and that coffee company is called guilt-free coffee, let's say, for example, low-acid coffee, that's the brief bit up front. The second thing you want to do is define the problem for me, because people who just create products and don't define what a problem for me is, that doesn't really resonate. So the problem in my example is 23 million Americans actually have acid reflux and they can't drink coffee. So that tells me a bit about what the product you offer is and what the problem is. The third thing you want to do is you want to tell me your solution. So in the case of my guilt-free coffee, you want to be able to tell me, we have a low-acid coffee. It addresses 23 million Americans. The solution is we've designed a manufacturing process that actually strips out the acid in manufacturing. We have it patented. And so suddenly now I understand what you do, what the problem is, what the solution is. The next thing you want to do, Dagan, is you want to talk about the market size. How big is this opportunity? And I find that what people do is they often fall into a trap of either one side of the spectrum talking about a $2.3 trillion market, something crazy, and I'm not even paying attention at that point. Or on the other side, they don't define any market size. In my example, let's say I've got 23 million Americans and they spend just $10 a month on coffee. Well, over the course of a year, that's a market size of $3 billion, right? So giving me the target market is really important. The next thing you want to do is actually tell me what traction you've gotten to date. What progress have you made? Is it on the back of an envelope, or are you actually in process? Do you have patented technology? And the final thing you want to do in this cocktail party or elevator pitch is you want to tell me what's unique about you as an individual that's going to make you successful. If you've been designing video games for the last 8 years and you suddenly want to launch this low-acid coffee, it's a bit of a stretch. But if you have a material sciences background or you've been running a coffee chain for the last 7 years, you know, my ears perk up. I'm ready to listen.
But there's more to it, because this just you've just walked us through what you want to hear, but there's certain things that you want to see as well, and you have some advice for people on that.
Sure. Well, what I would say, number one, is show me some energy. Give me enthusiasm. You'd be surprised the number of people who pitch and they mumble or they're not that excited. I mean, if you're not excited about your idea, I mean, don't expect me to be excited, you know? And you'd be surprised how many people come across that way. The second thing I like to tell people is be human. People hide behind a lot of industry jargon and they'll throw out a lot of buzzwords. And my view is if you're overly technical or throwing out jargon when you're speaking to me, it's probably because you're hiding behind the fact you don't really understand your market. So I like to tell people be human and use human examples. The third thing I like to tell people is use numbers. You know, I talked about it a little bit earlier. You know, when I go through 23 million Americans, $10 a month, $3 billion market size. If you're talking to me about numbers and facts and figures, suddenly my ears perk up again. I can sense what the opportunity is. The other thing, Dagan and Robert, that I find that people don't do is they don't tell me what they want from me. And, you know, I like to call this, you know, the close. You need to tell me, what are you looking for, you know? You'd be surprised how many people don't close on me. And so are you looking for $500,000? Are you looking for $1 million? Or do you just want to come back and see me next year? Or do you want some introductions to a local VC in the Southeast and you want to ask me for advice? So you really need to do that. And the final piece of advice I give people is be prepared for the deep dive. You know, often at a cocktail party, it doesn't turn into that, but it just might happen that, you know, GRP Partners was an early stage funder of Starbucks, you know, so I'm probably prepared to have a deep dive on coffee.
And we know coffee's for closers, Mark.
Yeah, there you go.
That's very good. Mark, we can't add anything to that. That was incredible. That was incredible. But sometimes it comes down, as you were pointing out, to the things people overlook, like getting so nervous and focused on what they're saying. It's how they're saying it that comes across badly.
You know, that's interesting, and I don't understand also, like, that you know that you're going to be faced with this cocktail party pitch scenario a lot of times in your career. It's not just pitching a VC. You bump into a potential customer. You bump into a business partner. You bump into a journalist who wants to cover your story, right? What are you going to say? And you need to practice that, and it needs to roll off your tongue with energy and excitement. If it's the first time you're saying it or you're not used to saying it, it's not going to sound that good.
We practice all the time. Mark, you're sticking around for the next hour. Allie Wing is here, the founder of Giggle. Incredible stuff. Get on the horn. Call us.
Call us. Email us.
We'll be right back, everybody. Take it, baby.
Yeah, welcome back. Your money, your questions, your money. I'm Robert Gray. This is Dagan McDowell.
Getting fired up. We want to hit the phones.
Absolutely. We've got Linda from D.C. calling us on the phone. Linda, what's on your mind this afternoon?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I've got a question for you. I recently, and kind of sadly, have inherited my mother's business, and she was very successful. She sold over 2 million cookbooks in her career as a self-published author, and she worked hard at testing recipes and marketing or getting her books out there, and they've just been selling for 25 years now like crazy, and now this business is mine, and I want to take it to the next level. We don't have a website. We do have a trademark on the series, so there is that intellectual property there.
Right.
One mistake that we made along the way was, even though this is a series of cookbooks, they don't all have necessarily the same trim size or the same look. So one thing I'm working on this year is getting that look so that it looks like a series. We don't have a website, so that's another thing I'm working on. But I'm just I think my biggest question is, my mom tried to wear all the hats, and you can't do that in a business. And so I'm realizing that I need to reach out and pull in some help if I want to grow this to the next level. I'm just not sure how to do that.
All right, Dani?
Yeah, well, you could use a business coach, obviously, Linda. It sounds like you may have enough profitability in this business that you don't need money to build the website. Is that true, or are you looking for money also?
I'm not looking I'm not looking. We've got plenty of capital.
Good. So if you're looking for brand recognizability, which
I know, it's a nice problem to have.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and having the consistency, I understand from a self-publisher or from a publishing standpoint, my publishers want all the covers of my books to look the same so that you can kind of build that brand cohesiveness. So I kind of understand where you're coming from there. What I would do is join groups online that can help you with different components of this. You're going to need to find talent. We used to do it with Monster, but there's much less expensive places to do it, like Hot Jobs Finder out there right now. I would check out places like Club E Factory, where entrepreneurs get together, and there's people there who do cookbooks and can actually give you advice on specific areas. I would check out Club E Network, and I would check out entrepreneur.com and go to the section that's specific to what you're actually working on. See if you can network with people in your area, get resources together. You may have to hire on some staff, but I would do it slowly and really try to figure out what specific niche you want them to fill before you do it.
What about finding people, basically salespeople who might pursue different markets with our brand and our trademark? I'm thinking about such things as when I watch all these infomercials and they're selling either exercise equipment or cooking equipment, and how great it would be to have our brand with a DVD with recipes that would go with that. But finding somebody to market that for me. I'm not a salesperson, so finding someone how would I go about doing that?
Well, actually, the way into a lot of these DVD infomercial type companies is actually through marketing firms that have contacts with these and established relationships with these organizations. That's something that we've been working on ourselves, actually. And so I would look for a marketing firm in your area that has contacts with these specific. You can just flat out ask them, do you have contacts for, and then what you're talking about. Some of the big guys, like the Gunther Renkers and so on that you're talking about that do the infomercials. I would look to see who has partnerships with those companies, is figure out what you could package and sell. It might be a cookbook along with the DVD, and then you're taking that to market, and then you're negotiating the heck out of the price of the advertisements and going from there. But you're going to need a partner to do that, because getting in the door to these big companies is next to impossible on your own. You need the in.
Yeah, you and I want to hear from Allie too, and Mark. Go ahead, John.
Absolutely. I mean, the infomercial game is a big business right now. One of the big players of it is in Seattle. I've done business with them. I forget their name. I'm sorry. They did Sonicare and a lot of the big ones. You can sell product there. I think you have a very high-class problem, Linda. First of all, you have something that sold 25 million copies. That's a great place to start. Self-publishing today gives you huge margins. You just need to find a way to get the distribution and the marketing done. You're so successful at what you're doing, I'd be careful not to take that brand too far away from what you've been successful at, because your customers love you for what you've brought them. You can make it consistent, you can lower the costs, you can get better distribution, and distribution help from guys like our friends at entrepreneur.com. But basically, this is a great situation.
Mark, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I'd like to point out two things. Number one, what the caller didn't make clear, and I think what you'll want to think about rather than a deep discussion now, is what are your skill sets? You know, you've inherited this from your mom. Your mom obviously had the skill sets to build it to where it is today. I think you need to figure out what your skill sets are and how you're going to complement those. I mean, ever the technologist myself, I'm always thinking, what's the technical angle? Books are moving to a world in which they're being distributed by Kindles, the Amazon Kindle. There's a lot of transformation in this market, and you've acknowledged you don't have a website, and yet so much now is happening on the web. I want to point out a company to the caller. It's called Equal, E-Q-A-L. What Equal is it's a group that actually helps people who want to create websites reach audiences in new ways. The guys behind Equal are the guys who are behind Lonely Girl 15, if anyone remembers that. It was a big popular series on YouTube. And they're actually specifically working with people in the cooking sector and helping them blow up by creating a multi-channel offering. And specifically, they've also done a book deal where they're helping integrate people who have books. And when people read the physical books, then they're driving you to a website and helping you integrate those two things. So something you may want to check out.
And Allie, anything you can draw from your experience?
I can. I mean, it is a high-class problem to have success and figure out what to do with it. But one of the things I didn't hear you say that I think is really important to think about before you race out thinking of the things you could collateralize off of the book concept is figure out what the asset is that has worked. Is it the content? Do you have the best recipes? Is it the voice and how it was communicated, that your mother just sort of had it resonated with a certain following? Which part of it made it work? And then start there and say, how do you collateralize that? Because I think I get a little nervous when I hear people saying, well, everything we've done has worked, so we're just going to go after new sales channels. And what you'll end up doing is developing some things that just don't sell. and you really need to go back to the beginning and say, what's the basic asset I have? Where do I think I solved a problem? And is there derivative opportunities around that will be logical for me to take?
Exactly right.
And with her mother's passing, making sure you're preserving what made it successful in the first place.
Yeah, because you run a risk right now of moving away from where you were. It's a huge opportunity. You'd probably be crazy not to think about it, but you better understand why you got where you got first. And that's a critical first step.
Mark? I think that Allie completely nailed it. I would just add one comment, which is the future of publishing looks a lot different than the past world of publishing. So be careful about, you want to identify the assets that worked, like Ali said, but you have to figure out how those apply to the future.
Yep.
And no doubt a cautionary tale for family businesses out there to sort of plan for the future when you're handing off.
Not cautionary. Opportunity.
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 There we go.
Right? The good, the glass half full, not the glass half empty. Come on, man.
It's half full. You just got to be ready.
I know. Keep the calls coming, everybody. 877-249-9626.
Or your money at foxbusiness.com. This is the Fox Business Network, the only business network with Saturday hours.
That's right. Stay with us. Welcome back. We can't stop talking. We're talking about business in the break, but we're here to answer people's questions.
We're here to listen to you, too.
And listen to our callers. Stan is on the line from Ohio. Stan, go ahead. What do you want to know?
Hello, panel. I watch Fox's Your Questions, Your money very regularly, and I love the insight and information, so thanks. Here's my question. 8 years ago, I applied for and received a provisional patent for an intangible item, and the project went by the wayside, but now it's on our front burner. My question is, can I reapply for a second provisional patent on the same item 8 years later, or if not, what might you recommend, Dani Babb? This is Stan Pope.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the time period you have is 5 years. So after 5 years, you have a clean slate, if my understanding. So go for it. Get another 1 year provisional patent for cheap, uspto.gov. And now you already know how to do it. It's actually easier than it was 8 years ago and not really much more money. So, yep, you can.
That'd be great. I hope to be back on your show in a couple of months with a product that'll knock your socks off.
That sounds wonderful.
And you are welcome.
Okay.
To come back, Stan. So keep us posted on that.
He's got the enthusiasm part down.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Let's get to another question. Heidi is on the line from Maryland. Heidi, go ahead. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I'm calling because my family has had a company for a little over 80 years. And part of the company which they stopped using was a soda factory. And the equipment was updated 60 years ago. And now that I've kind of encountered a situation, I'm dealing with breast cancer, and I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good.
But as a child growing up, when I wanted to, have a certain flavor of soda or something, my father would tell me to go up and mix it myself and see what I came up with. Well, due to the breast cancer and the limitations of sugar and so forth, I've been doing that myself. And now I'm interested in reinventing and updating the equipment, and I want to know how to go about that because my father's near retirement, my brother's still with the company, and there's just some logistics that we need to work on, and I want to know how to get started.
Heidi, are you producing soda that is sold, that you produce your own line of soda, or you produce soda for,
Yeah, it was our own brand. I mean, just name a flavor, and if you wanted something, we came up with it.
What's the brand? We want to sell something.
You have to tell us.
Well, it hasn't been made for over a dozen years, but it was called Crescent Fruit Beverages. And they did everything from seltzers to colas to a variety of ginger ales to cherry orange. And, years ago when there was a lot of farmland, they used to get the juices fresh.
It was sold in the Mid-Atlantic region, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I grew up in Virginia, so anything that happened from Maine to Florida, I've pretty much probably eaten or had to drink. But who wants to get in here first? Because I think this is an incredibly interesting story.
It really is, motivation in particular. But, the issue, since you've got a business that has been not operating for a time, there's going to be a question of, do you have the people that know how to do it in place? Do you have the managers in place? And what's the shape of the equipment today? So I don't think it's only a question of getting the equipment back into steam. It's making sure that you've got the basis of putting together the team of people that's going to market this. So I'd want to talk with your family and find out who of all the people that work with you in the business 12 years ago are still around that would want to get back involved and do it again. And then you want to team up with someone who knows how the market's working today, who bring them into your business, but you need that loyal old group that knows how to do what you were doing before to rebuild that brand. But I bet you Allie's got some ideas about this.
Well, I think this one, the thing I keep thinking when I listen to you is, what do you want from this? And the reason why I say that is, as soon as I hear a not operating factory or manufacturing environment that's going to require equipment upgrades, I think big dollars, and long term. And it's there. Based on that, I immediately think, hey, this isn't casual. It's not likely that you can do this as a hobby thing. So I think you kind of need to think about, while we've got great examples over the last few years of a lot of great beverage success stories in a lot of different areas, especially if you're coming at it from a motivation, and I'll say I have a personal bias on this, of thinking about soda with a reduced sugar approach. Thumbs up. I think there's a lot of arguments that you could make a really great total available market opportunity argument for that, but it's a highly competitive field. Yeah. I mean, there's big guys. I also want to give back. I have been so fortunate, and the people around me have gathered and propped and have been wonderful getting me through this time. And
And so this is actually a way of giving back to those who are paying forward and benefiting those who are dealing with cancer.
I think that's exactly what you have to think about is what will define success for you, because you need to sort of size that to then go back and assess, all right, so for me to accomplish that, what would be required? And am I willing or am I capable of making that investment? Because whether that's finding the person that can come bring it to life and you're an advisor or participant in it, if your goal is to build a generational business, that might be a very different approach to what you have. If your goal is to build local employment, that might be a very different approach. But one of the things I always caution people when you kind of go from, hey, I'm kind of approaching it again as a hobby and there's probably something really big and interesting here, is be careful, you might get what you ask for and it might not be the life you want, and you're going to make a huge investment to do anything to make something like what you're describing up and operational again.
Mark?
I think, yeah, the cautionary tale that I would echo is it sounded like a very inside-out approach. My family used to produce sodas. I kind of am thinking about getting back into it. I'd like to start up the machinery. I think you need an outside-in approach to say, what is the market looking for now, and is there a niche that I can solve? And Allie, I think, talked about this low-sugar concept. I worked with a gentleman named Stuart Lander out of Miami who was trying to launch a business called Not a Soda. And what he was trying to do is figure out how to get something that kids would like to drink that was healthy and good for you, not a soda. And we actually did all the market research. And doing the research, it sort of bore out that it was not going to be an easy segment to crack. So I think you really need to be careful about not doing inside out, but start outside and look in and find a good market opportunity before you invest the time and energy and money.
Yeah, just a brief comment. You know, it sounds to me like this is not really an old business that you're reviving because the market has changed so much and there's so many new competitors. It would be more like a brand new business with a lot of information and maybe some brand loyalty. You can certainly use some free tools like SurveyMonkey to find out what that brand recognition is if it's still out there. But it seems to me like it's almost a brand new marketing plan and an entirely new vision with a lot of history behind it, and obviously an amazing internal motivation, which I think you should continue and capture. But look at this in terms of starting a new business plan. What's the new competition? What is the brand awareness? And it's kind of starting over, even though you have a history.
Yeah, because, I mean, 12 years, that's a long time to lapse. But nonetheless, hey, if you've got to run out and grab a soda or anything else, please take us with you on the radio. Sirius Channel 145 and XM 168.
More ahead. Stay with us.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. Straight to the phone. Cindy is on the line from Illinois. Cindy, you're with us.
Hi.
Go ahead. What do you want to know? Go ahead and ask your question.
I have a cleaning business, a small residential and small office cleaning business. I've been in business for over 13 years, and I'm pretty much the northern half of Illinois. I feel that I've been so successful, and I have a drive to continue to be successful. I'm overwhelming myself with the amount of work, but I want to franchise so that I can start getting my name out there and giving other people the opportunity to have their own business. I think this is a perfect market to start that, but franchising, I'm going to need some money. And I don't know if I should do a grant, a small business loan, look for investors. What would be the best avenue to go?
The SBA is going to be the cheapest money if you can get it. I would check out, I had mentioned earlier in the previous hour, the Mercantile. It's not a bank. It's just called Mercantile. It's in Altamonte Springs, Florida. I would check them out. They're giving up to $7 million for this type of expansion. And then also, I had mentioned earlier, the California Bank and Trust, which is giving out money for this type of thing. But I would take a look at how much you really think it's going to cost, because LegalZoom, for example, will do this for under $1,000. They'll help you get your franchise up and running. And really, you can market this using online tools, which can be pretty inexpensive. So it may not take as much money as you think, first of all. And second of all, I would look to have the people that, the franchisees actually participate in the upfront cost in all of this, particularly if you're providing them with marketing materials and an existing brand.
Is franchising the way to go, John?
She
seems overwhelmed with the growth.
No, I would question that. And having a business that's so successful it overwhelms you is a pretty good place to start. And so sometimes the answer is just to find a way to get unoverwhelmed by your success. Problem with franchising is You either need, if you're approaching a person in another market to use your franchise for them to do business, you need to have a special sauce. You either need to have some process in the business that you do better than anybody else does. Right. In this case, I bet you it would be personnel management, finding and managing the people that actually do the work. Or it's the ability to deliver customers to them, which is why you go to a Burger King franchise or Wendy's franchise. So I would want to know what would be the conversation with that person you're trying to rope into being the franchisee, which secret sauce is it before you get there. If you have a secret sauce, frequently that person will give you $50,000 to take the franchise, but then you have to deliver stuff back to them in order to make it worth their while to do it. Some companies, IHOP for example, actually finance franchises for those people, and they have a financing arm like GMAC in the old days used to have that will help the person raise the money to do it. But I think, unless I know more than I know right now, I think this is a tough business to franchise. If you really do have a secret of managing the people, I would just take your business and expand it into those areas and manage those people yourself, because that's not a skill that transfers very well to another entrepreneur.
Allie, you're shaking your head.
I just think that's the exact answer, is how do you franchise is predicated upon you can give something away that's of value that can be replicated without a lot of direct touch. Which means it's usually hard to do that in a services business. Doesn't mean it hasn't been done. There's lots of examples where it has been done. But I would say a really good first step for the caller would be for you to think about, if you're overwhelmed right now because part of what makes it work is how much you have to actually be personally involved in it all, solve that one first. Figure out how to build a management structure where you actually have the right load, because as soon as you can solve that, then you can actually take that mini model of remote management and see if it's franchisable. But if you're still touching it all, if part of why you're overwhelmed, which is often what I hear in services industries, then I think what you have to do first is figure out how to be a little more detached and have it work before I think you can make as big a step.
If that's the situation, then adding franchising will make you worse off than you were. You'll be more tired than you were.
Mark, do you find that for lack of a better description, the type A personality, the person who is a micromanager, impedes growth in companies because they can't let go and can't delegate?
I'd say no question. I think one of the hardest things that founders suffer from is the ability to bring in a management team and actually delegate. And that's why I find actually having mentors, having coaches, having venture capitalists actually can help founders, because they need the coaching required to allow them to step up to the next level and bring in a management layer beneath them. And I think that's something that does impede growth in a lot of companies.
Does this sound like a business that would franchise? Because John says we're kind of shaking our heads here, no.
Yeah, I have to vote with the panel. I think you've assembled some pretty smart people there. I think the advice they've given is very practical. This is a growth equity problem. If you want to be able to take it from a regional business to a national business, I'm not sure franchising this particular business is the right idea. I would also say in this era, in 2009, the people who have franchised in the past probably are in the retail environment. They're probably hurting a bit. They probably have had their personal portfolios affected a bit. And I think people willing to put upfront money into a franchise right now and expanding this may be a difficult ask. I would look more at trying to grow your existing business.
But we have to remind Cindy that if she's built a successful business at one of the toughest businesses in the world, she is a hero. And so it isn't necessary that everybody turns out to be Google or Walmart. You've got a great, great business there. Make your life better, make the business work better, bring in help where you can. But you are a winner already.
Yeah, if you work in Chicago, I have stores there and would love to get your card if you do it for professional environments as well. It's very difficult to find really predictable, great service partners in the cleaning industry.
Allie, before we go to a break, I just want, because again, we were talking in the last break. I mean, you've done this. This did not, wasn't handed to you on a silver platter. I mean, you've gotten several graduate degrees, and you said that you were the first generation of your family to go away to college. You described yourself as a small town girl from Montana.
I am. I mean, I'd like to think that, you know, I'm an example of the American dream in that you do most of it through tenacity. And I had great examples in parents who were just big-hearted people. that didn't come from with a big focus on pedigree, but we're very, very committed to do things that turn you on, have a passion in life, and work hard because nobody's going to hand it to you. So I think that was sort of the quest towards all my brothers and sisters, and there's 9 of us. So it's a huge family.
6 adopted, 5 from other countries.
Absolutely. I did have really exceptional parents, and we've all gone on to get college degrees, so it's definitely a generational thing. And probably several of us are entrepreneurs, probably not with the same interest that I have. And what I will caution everybody, and I say this all the time, is I've worked hard 18 years before I left to do my own concept for other people. And it's what I chose is not a hobby business. What I undertook is, and I worked hard for everybody, and I've still never worked harder. And the reality is getting through each of the critical stages we've had, and I still consider our business, which has some nice milestones under its belt, maybe toddlers ourselves. We're still have a lot in front of us to prove. And best ride, still feel like it's kind of a luxury to get to do a business that is your passion. But make no mistake, I came back from DC yesterday from the opening and finished at about 2 a.m. The night before. So
hard work.
Wow.
But worth it. Stay with
Indeed.
us, everybody. We'll be right back. We have a few more minutes. We're here for you. Stay with us. The phones. Time for one more caller. Tom is on the line from Robert's home state of North Carolina. Go ahead,
Tom, what's going on?
Hey, I like your show, guys. Thanks a lot for giving everybody great information. I've recently started an energy-saving green business, and I want to know what I can do to get some funding to help get this business off the ground for advertising and everything else.
So you want funding for the advertising, or you want to find maybe some free advertising? Because we have some ideas for
business capital in period in all.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would consider doing both, honestly. You can raise capital to do hardcore advertising, which you can do. I would check out like Go Big Network, which has a ton of organizations that for green specific projects are helping you raise advertising dollars to do it. So check them out. In terms of I would actually prefer to, or recommend that you go for some of the free stuff. Like I would go to Trevera.com. They have some outstanding ideas on how to get your information and your organization out there for free using social media. In terms of raising capital, the banks are doing it, but there's a ton of grants out there for this sort of thing, and they're populating on websites all the time. Grants.gov is one. Business.gov/finance is another one you can go to find out what sort of grants are available in this particular market.
Mark, you were trying to get in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, let's be real about the way most of these businesses are funded. We call it the 3 Fs: friends, family, and fools. And those are the people who mostly invest in early stage business. It's your most likely funding source. Get yourself to a point where you can prove out a little bit more to get seed investment. Once you've got seed investment, then you can start to approach venture capitalists. But I think the Go Big Network also is a great suggestion. Will Schroeder, who founded that, is a phenomenal entrepreneur, and there's great resources there.
Do you have any?
I would say I totally agree. And even when I started Giggle, I stepped back and did that sort of very close friends and family first round. The thing I would add to that, before I went out with what I thought was my proof of model and raised money, what I would add to you is also be willing to do the investment that will be required for you to be credible to take other people's money down the road. And what I mean by that specifically is you may have to step into a lower paying opportunity. You may have to walk away from some compensation for a while. But if you have to put yourself at risk to do the idea and actually have something that material you can show, that will pay back in dividends even when you're fundraising later at different stages, because it's partly how you prove your stripes as an entrepreneur, your willingness to have the sweat equity in the business, as well as if it's an area that you haven't really already done, it'll show that you've spent some time there, and so your capabilities within it.
What do you have to add, John?
I think that Allie is the best entrepreneur we've had on the show ever, and I think Mark is the best investor we've had. We should.
Can you come back every week?
Reconvene the panel.
No, we should.
Allie has a business to run.
Break out Mark's pitch into a podcast, and we should send it to everybody. And Allie's experience and Mark's experience together are phenomenal.
Well, Mark is a multimedia VC. Mark, you probably already have a podcast. Have you put
Well,
one?
I do have one thing I'd point out. I do have a blog site. It's called Both Sides of the Table. Both Sides of the Table. Reason being, I'm a two-time CEO and entrepreneur myself. I built 2 companies. I sold them. And I'm just starting to reblog again and put some of this advice out. And when Dagan had invited me on the show, I just wrote up the notes in advance, and you can reread them out there.
And I bet you, Mark, I bet you it's free for people, isn't it?
Right.
See,
of course it's free.
Paying for stuff is so 20th century. You've got to get somebody 25 years old near you if you're going to start a business who knows how to get all the stuff for free there is, because otherwise you're going to compete against somebody who's doing that and you're going to get killed.
Yeah, and it's an example of becoming the expert in something before you go out and try and start a business and building that credibility.
Danny and John, Allie Wing,
Thank you so much.
Giggle, Visit the Stores, and Mark Suster of GRP. Thank you. We're back come Monday.